And you go to the lavatory and eat the toilet roll?
What sort is it, Andrex? Probably not, no.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where we're trying to work out what brand of toilet paper we would consume.
Charming.
Really?
Yeah, well, it's made out of bear fur. It'll be fine.
Fair enough. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Brilliant.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All rested and relaxed and ready to go.
Certainly am. What did you think of this week's episode?
I thought it was a bit bizarre.
Yeah, bizarre's a appropriate word, I think.
What did you think?
I thought it was bizarre.
You did?
Yeah.
I would say that's an appropriate description, yes.
But not in a bad way. I thought it had its charms.
It certainly had its moments.
I think actually you mentioned to me earlier today, the use of monkeys wasn't particularly critical to the story, was it?
No, they just were there for the most part. I mean, they had a moment, but most of the monkeys could easily have been not there.
Yeah. I mean, there was I suppose a context built around it. The animal rights motive.
Well, I think it was, part of it was distinguishing between this guy who is seen as a villain because of the testing he does on animals, but he's also an animal lover. He's got a house full of animals, and it's just he distinguishes between certain animals and other types.
And also allowed for a number of moments of humour and levity.
Yeah, there was a bit of that in there.
Okay, enough of this monkeying around. Shall we begin?
Why not? In the traditional way?
Yes. A banana? Or a summary?
Let's grab handfuls of our own feces and chuck them across the room.
That's enough. Crack on.
In the House of Monkeys, our intrepid hero is once again faced with a locked room scenario. A scientist with a reputation for testing on animals has been impaled on his own samurai sword, but there's no way a killer could have escaped the scene. A furious gorilla gives Jonathan a clue, but can he solve the case before the DI assigned to the investigation runs out of patience? Or will the solution elude him for once?
Locked room. That's what I have written at the top of my notes. It's got an Agatha Christie feel to it this week. The locked room, the manor house mystery, a finite amount of, potentially a finite amount of suspects.
Yeah, this is our big season finale as well. It's a good one.
Yeah. Where do we begin?
In a strange house.
Yeah, precisely. It's a close-up of some fruit being cut before the mail arrives through the letterbox, and the house is identified as that of Dr. Elliot Strange and his family.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's quite bold to go with Doctor Strange. I would have thought that was copyrighted to Marvel.
Yeah, hadn't even considered that, not being a superhero fan.
Yeah, I suppose back in the 90s when maybe a bit of a lull for...
Yeah, I don't think there'll be too many people saying, you can't use Doctor Strange, and everyone else says, who's Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's big business now, obviously. Benedict Cumberbatch and so on in the movie.
Benedict Cumberbatch would have been an interesting Creek. I suppose it's because of the Sherlock connection.
Yeah, there's a connection. Same sort of approach in many ways.
Bit awkward.
Yeah, he's a good Sherlock. I like him as Sherlock.
Very good. So this is a very grand house, and this reminded me, I did mention Agatha Christie there, but it's similar to many settings of a Columbo mystery.
Everything reminds you of Columbo mysteries.
A lot of things do. But you know what I'm saying, in Columbo it was often set, and in fact, in most of these episodes in the first season, we've had palatial places.
Yeah, certainly. It's a similar sort of idea.
So this Dr. Strange, Dr. Elliot Strange, he picks up the mail, goes to his study, and sits at his desk. Across from what?
It's kind of a samurai uniform, I would imagine, on a mannequin.
Yeah.
Or stand, anyway.
It's a fairly imposing piece of armour in any case.
And the camera kind of tracks back to it every now and then to remind you that this is important and ominous.
We then have our customary POV shot, but not that of a human.
Well, no, I wasn't sure what this was. It was either a gorilla or a robo-gorilla or a man dressed as a gorilla, or it had the weirdest eyes.
Samson is its name. It lumbers in, and Strange chats to it in a relaxed manner.
Yeah, he's aware that the gorilla is there. He puts some of the mail in the gorilla's mouth, and I immediately think, that's not how gorillas would carry mail.
How would they?
In their hands.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
But they need their hands for climbing.
Well, maybe they would put the mail down before climbing.
But what if they want to climb up somewhere to put the mail?
Well, on that occasion, they would then perhaps put it in their mouth, but I don't think it would be their standard. He's not a dog.
As Strange gets up to replace a sword which has fallen from this armour suit, his wife Ingrid enters, and we hear that Samson has a penchant for eating documents.
It does seem to be his thing, but she also treats this gorilla like a dog.
In what way?
It's just her manner around it. If it had been a dog, it would have been spoken to the same way, and it would have been treated the same way by these characters in this scene, I think.
I think that's the point. It's a...
Domesticated gorilla.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any such thing.
Like a Louis Theroux documentary.
Yeah, well, I suppose you could have that. You could come and live with them for a week.
The credits roll, and we see shots of monkeys roaming over the house.
This was good. Did you see what the director did with this? So each time a name came up on the screen, it was almost like a split-second freeze on a monkey. It was really good. I enjoyed
Nice touch. We also see a younger woman, Kathy Strange. She receives a letter informing her that she has had a successful first audition.
Yeah, she's got a callback.
So an actress, we believe.
Apparently. They liked her empty-headed presentation of a character, and she doesn't look like she understands how to do that consciously.
Jordan, her husband, he is more interested in tickling his monkey.
Yeah, there's a female monkey there, and he's worried it's put on some weight. We should maybe explain who these people are in relation to one another. Jordan is the son of Ingrid and Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy is his wife.
Correct.
And they all live together in this big house with the monkeys and the gorilla.
At this point, when I talked about tickling a monkey, are we going to just now agree that there'll be no spanking jokes?
Okay, I hadn't even considered that there would be.
We then have a bit of humour over who is pregnant and how it happened.
There seems to be some sort of allusion to Jordan having a excess level of interest in this female monkey.
Yeah, they've got a weird relationship, Jordan and Kathy. He apparently doesn't show her enough affection, more interested in these beasts, and she's a bit dippy and emotional and fragile.
Yeah, and his mother obviously is an expert, is able to clarify that the monkeys don't mate outside their species, and there only is one other one of that type in the house.
Now, Ingrid is a GP. She tells them that she is going to be giving the son of an old friend an MOT, a physical.
She names this friend, someone she worked with back in the 70s, presumably a doctor, maybe not. But
could be a receptionist or
could be.
Whatever.
Certainly, her name anyway is Sally Creek.
Ah. So it's either Jordan or Kathy asks if the son of her friend doesn't get embarrassed having to strip off in front of, one of his mother's old friends, and she says, yeah, I think he does. She quite likes that.
She revels in that, I think. We skip over to this MOT.
Yeah, over at the surgery. Partially nude, I think at this point he's got a pair of trunks boxers on.
Yep.
He is alarmed to spot some latex gloves and admits that his love life has not been in great health recently.
It's not just the latex gloves, it's the massive tub of Vaseline sitting next to them as well.
Yeah, although in fairness, if the latex gloves are to be used, I'd be quite happy to see the Vaseline.
I suppose in the context that makes sense.
The alternative could be a bit stingy.
Apparently, Alan Davis had to sign a nudity waiver for this episode because he was going to appear naked in this episode. Not in this scene, actually, it's later on.
Okay.
But this scene's kind of getting that way. There was a special bit of paperwork had to be dealt with. He kind of talks to her about the crime-solving thing. She's got wind of this, that he gets involved, and he says, yeah, it's coming about a habit since he met this writer.
Yeah, is this the point where he is instructed to get on the bed and...
Knees to the chin.
Yeah, remove his underpants, yeah.
Yeah.
Whilst she is inspecting his undercarriage.
Oh, I assumed his prostate. Yeah. That's part of the whole...
That's where it would be accessed from.
Caboodle, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point he's being digitally violated.
He's brought to tears. Did you see that?
Little wondering.
A single tear that he dabs away.
I would love to have heard him sing Moon River. You need to have watched Fletch to get it.
Okay, well, I don't, but hopefully many of the listeners do.
All you need to do is search for Fletch Moon River and you'll...
Is that safe for work?
Depends where you work. Not if you work in a nursery.
No. Okay. We skip ahead back to the house.
Before we do,
Okay.
you obviously recognised Ingrid.
Well, instantly it's a former collaborator with David Rennick.
It is. Annette Crosby played Ingrid Strange, born in 1934 in Edinburgh, or Midlothian, I
Okay.
think it was, yeah. Victor Meldrew's long-suffering wife in One Foot in the Grave, which, as you correctly stated, was a David Rennick creation. She has also starred in Calendar Girls, Edward VII, Paradise Postponed, Taggart, Heartbeat, Dr. Finlay, Hope Springs, Little Dorrit, The Vicar of Dibley, and she is the mother of Selena Griffiths, who appears later in Jonathan Creek in the episode entitled The Sinner and the Sandman.
Annette Crosby always seems to me like a person who would easily step into any role that Maggie Smith does.
Yes. Yeah, there's a sternness there, but...
Yeah, sort of a Pride of Miss Jean Brody type thing. Must be the Lothian influence.
Back to Strange's study. He seals an envelope by licking it as the camera focuses menacingly on the armour.
This is the kind of thing, I've mentioned this in a previous episode, they do a bit heavy-handed with the foreshadowing.
Mm.
You know, it's like, if you didn't notice the previous 3 times that we zoomed in on this samurai sword, look, it's a samurai sword.
Yeah, I suppose it's trying to create the tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
He then starts to take some audio notes on a dictaphone.
Yeah, about mould on the liver cells of turkeys.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Something along those lines.
From outside, we then hear him shouting, "No, no, no," over and over again, as an apparent struggle takes place, and he shouts for help before there is silence.
Yeah, the sounds... We're going to find him with a sword through him shortly.
Oh, come on, Ian.
I know, but I need to talk about it here. The sounds that he makes here didn't, to me, fit with being run through by a sword by somebody else. There was more of a
Wouldn't that
thumping and a thudding and a
Yeah,
time to say no and help me and stuff.
yeah, that's exactly right. When they fell through the sword, that's when the silence happened. That was
Yes, but
up until that point.
Yes, but at this point, for the viewer, you're meant to imagine that he's being attacked by somebody. The sounds that he makes for me don't really fit with an attack by another person.
Sure. So if you're assuming there's someone in there swinging a sword at him,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
The monkeys are agitated, and at that moment, Ingrid arrives home.
She does. She has a taxi driver with her. She's looking for some cash to pay him.
She's immediately concerned that the door to the study's locked and there's no response.
Yeah. At first I thought, why? It seems a bit overly concerned.
Yeah.
But I suppose,
He's
you
an
know,
old man,
an older
he might-
man in a study, why would he not be responding to a shout?
Exactly. He didn't wear headphones that we know of or anything like that. So she runs round to look in the window. She runs past Jordan.
Yep, he joins her and they look in the window and they're met with a horrible sight.
As I mentioned moments ago, Elliot has been run through, it appears, by the samurai sword.
Lying on his side, clearly dead. It's the last time we see Elliot Strange, so I shall mention just now he was played by Charles Kay. Born in 1930, he is known for Amadeus, Henry V, The Importance of Being Earnest, Law and Order UK, Midsummer Murders, Fiddlers 3, Fortunes of War, Crown Court, Hobie City, Casualty, and The Bill.
He had a distinguished air about him, did he not?
Yeah, you could see him being a Shakespearean actor or even a teacher
Yeah,
at
perhaps.
a public school, a headmaster.
Yes, perhaps that. Demon Headmaster.
Hmm.
If Jack Straw had the week off.
Have we discussed that before? Because
No, I don't think so.
that's exactly who I think he looks like.
Well, because he does.
Yeah. Is that well known?
Well, I don't know, but it's
I mean, is that a
quite
thing?
obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. We're maybe getting off topic here.
I
But
think there's not many listeners will remember the Demon Headmaster.
again, all you have to do is search for the Demon Headmaster and also search for Jack Straw. Compare and contrast, let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that. Over at Maddie's flat, assuming you're finished with Mr. K.
I am.
K, is that right? Am I getting that right?
K, yeah. Don't worry, I'm from Barcelona.
Maddie has a drawer in her freezer entirely devoted to Maltesers.
Frozen Maltesers, yeah, I have many a pack of them. Very nice.
I refrigerate my Maltesers. I wouldn't say I put them in the freezer, but my freezer's in the garage.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll give it a try.
Fair enough.
So she's munching on a packet of these chocolate treats. What's Jonathan doing?
Oh, he's measuring his pulse with something that clips to his ear. He's trying to improve his aerobic capacity because Ingrid has criticised that. That's the one thing that she wasn't happy with from his MOT.
He then, rather amusingly, makes an insensitive remark about Maddie.
Yeah, he doesn't even make the remark. He implies the remark. He says that coming up 8 flights of stairs shouldn't knacker him. She says it knackers her, and he's like, yeah, well.
This is the first of a few times in this episode.
He either completely lacks tact, or he thinks it's hilarious to act like he has no tact.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, she takes it well. She's not someone who... We've seen this before, in the first episode, for example.
Yeah.
I think she's comfortable enough with herself not to be... she's not overly sensitive about it.
Yeah, and I think he gets that, but maybe doesn't know where the line is sometimes.
Yeah, but I think it's probably because he knows he can do it because he knows that she knows that he likes her.
Yeah.
So he's not having a go. He just finds her attractive.
Yeah. Okay. In any event, he changes the subject, and we go back to the house.
Well, does he not say that they're going to go out for a brisk walk before lunch or dinner or something?
Yeah.
Back to the house yet. It's now the crime scene. The place is swarming with cops as a DC Spelling explains to his boss, D.I. Masterson, that the key is still in the lock in the study. The door is solid, so what does she advise?
I don't know, go in the window.
Yes, cut the grill.
Because that's what they do, they cut the grill. Kathy's looking particularly devastated at this point, the daughter-in-law.
Throughout the entire episode, I think she's got tears in her eyes.
Yeah.
She's not... You feel sorry for her, but she's one of these people who are just so weak that you feel like giving them a shake and saying, come on, pull yourself together. She's always just on the verge of crying and you think, oh, it's hard work being around.
Yes, I would maybe say that last part is certainly true. They head outside anyway to get this grill cut off, and somebody asks how long it's going to take.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take very long.
No. Not if you've got the right tools.
And a good editing suite.
Yep. So inside, they find the body, the armour, and the dictaphone. Back over to Mary's flat. Now, did this remind you of anything at all when they get back in?
When he comes and takes the beer out the fridge.
Well, the appearance of Maddie.
When she comes up the stairs, it reminded me of Columbo in Exercise and Fatality.
Yes, but I was thinking something more recent, the episode of Sledgehammer. Up the flights of stairs now, is that?
When he gets Dory to carry him.
Yes.
Aha.
Yeah, he gets her to carry him the second time, but the first time he's in some state, he's like Maddie.
Somewhat dilapidated, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so Jonathan's up first. He seems okay. She is a physical wreck.
Yes, she's also annoyed that he's picked her lock to get in the flat instead of waiting for her to come and open the door. In fact, she's actually quite unimpressed with him overall at this stage.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any better when he says that she reminds him of a sweaty beetroot.
Yeah, that's on the harsh side, I would say.
Harsh, but quite accurate. She's certainly sweaty and her face was very red.
It's maybe one of those jokes you just think and keep unsaid.
Yeah. Or leave it until later on in the evening when she's cooled down, had a bath, and then you can have a gentle laugh. Perhaps not right now when she's feeling...
No. I've made a similar mistake, but I'll not repeat it on tape.
You shouldn't. Stop saying tape. VHS. At this point, Ingrid calls and breaks the news of the death to Jonathan.
He's quite shocked.
You would be. How else would you react to the news that a family friend has been murdered in a locked room by a samurai sword?
Not everybody would be that bothered by the death of a family friend. They might be intrigued or
you can still be shocked.
Curious.
You can still be shocked. I mean, okay, give you an example. Someone very famous dies. You're shocked.
Yeah.
Last year we had lots of famous people dying. I mean, Prince.
Alan Rickman would be a better example, I think.
Yeah, Rickman might be a better example. Someone texts you, Alan Rickman's dead. Shocking, but end of the day you think, wonder what I'm going to have for my dinner because he's not your friend.
Yeah. So maybe, Creek's momentarily shocked and we don't see it.
Thank you, that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah. Well, why didn't you just say that the first time?
I did.
Over at the strange house, the detectives are talking to Ingrid as this sort of half gorilla, half, I don't even know what it is, dog thing wanders around. And the detective is upsetting him with a display of sexual dominance.
Yes, he's sitting with his legs splayed and a a pencil. His pecker's up.
I believe it's called man-spreading these days,
Is that what they call it?
especially if you're on public transport.
Was that not what it was called in Jonathan Creek? Was that last week when they were on the scavenger hunt?
I can't remember.
I remember the big guy in the back of the car. He was spreading his legs.
Yeah, I might well have mentioned that in the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, man spreading. Fair enough.
seems to be the thing.
Can a woman not do it?
I think it would still be called that.
Was it?
Yeah, because I think it's an anatomical thing. Women don't have to do that.
Don't have to,
So
but
if
they
they're doing it,
want
they're
to.
mimicking the way that meant it, I guess.
Guys don't have to do it either.
To a certain extent they do.
Mm.
You can't sit with your knees together and be comfortable.
Like you can sit with cross. You can cross your legs if you have to.
You could.
I think that's the whole point. It's more of a psychological thing. It's more about showing your manliness. That's the.
I mean, I'm sitting like that right now. I'm not trying to dominate you in any way.
I should hope not.
It's not necessary.
Yeah, put your pencil down. Anyway, where were we?
The gorilla is upset with the detective.
Yeah, I think he changes his posture immediately.
Yeah, he doesn't want to challenge the gorilla's dominance around here, I don't think.
No.
Ingrid notes to the inspector that Elliot was unpopular with and she says, so-called animal rights fraternity, because they value the well-being of lab mice over the curing of tumours.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so called. It is animal rights. Whether or not you agree with them is a different matter, but it's not.
Yeah, that is what they're called.
Yeah. So-called feminists. Well,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. So-called footballer. I say
Yeah.
that a lot when I watch Gerry and Iain play. This bit I don't get. The detective says to play the dictaphone to Ingrid. It's like, listen to your husband die. There's nothing she can add to this.
No, that's quite Columbo-esque. I think that happened a few times where,
Who's looking for a reaction?
yeah, either a videotape or an audio tape or a photograph.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to show you a body with the head missing.
Samson's agitated more than Ingrid is by the tape, I think.
Yes. He'll just recognise the voice, not know what's going on.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the building, the police are doing a bit of a search around the office.
But Masterson, she explains the conundrum that they find themselves in.
Well, we do seem to have a problem here, Mrs. Strange. With the door still locked from the inside, as it was. The fact that no one could have left the room anyway without you or the taxi driver seeing them. And as we seem now to have eliminated any panels or openings in the walls...
Inspector, the evidence is there. Someone was in his study and stabbed him to death. Don't ask me how, don't ask me who. And don't tell me the whole thing is impossible. I know it's impossible. You're the detectives. You tell me how it was done. Because if you can't, maybe there's someone else who can.
I'm not sure that's much of a threat to the detectives. If you don't solve this case, I'll find someone else who can solve it and save you all the work.
Yeah. I mean, you'll still get the clear-up record or whatever it is. Yeah. You can't charge them.
They're probably quite happy.
Yeah. If you can't solve it, I'll get someone to present you with all the evidence and proof.
Yes. Jonathan actually shows up at this point with Maddie.
Yes, we see them arriving outside. Back in the study, Jonathan and Maddie look around as Ingrid reveals how secure the room is, including the chimney. So she's explaining this as a locked room.
Even a rat couldn't get in, I think she says. Maddie starts to theorise, as she likes to do, to see if she can just stumble across something.
Yeah, what does she suggest?
She says the real question is not how the killer got out, but how they got in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Suggests that perhaps they were there all along. And the indication is that she's talking about the samurai armour. Maybe someone was wearing it, but posing as a mannequin.
Mm-hmm.
So she brushes against it and it collapses onto the floor.
The cops had the same idea and rebuilt it, but poorly.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair enough theory to have.
Well, it's a good question to ask. How did they get in?
Mm-hmm. But how did they get out?
It's still
big one,
a bigger one, yeah. Oh, unless it's they've built a shelf in front of themselves. They haven't
Jonathan's looking to see any toilets.
They've turned themselves into a book with human skin for a cover.
We then have a montage of them inspecting the place inside and out, and we see Maddie take a Polaroid which is immediately eaten by Samson.
Not good for you to eat Polaroid photographs.
No. You want to have them properly developed first.
Absolutely.
This seemed a bit tacked on. I mean, Maddie we've never seen her taking Polaroids before.
No, they're just trying to emphasise this thing. Oh, gorilla eats stuff. Gorilla eats stuff.
The montage ends with Jonathan noting a blood-stained gash in the desk and Maddie saying that the books on the floor were from the top shelf and thrown across the room.
Yeah, and Jordan's got a theory.
What's that?
They just flew there themselves. He's got some brilliant lines in this
He has.
and in the way that they're delivered is perfect.
He is hilarious.
Because a little bit later on, he's still there and they're talking about this and he says he's got 2 words.
Yeah.
If anybody's listening, Amityville Horror. And it's brilliant because he genuinely seems to believe that. Ingrid sends him off to look after Kathy, who's obviously still distressed, and he points out that they know he's right and they just can't admit it.
Now, when he is left, Ingrid practically pleads with Jonathan and Maddie to stay the night. She thinks that things are teetering on the edge of reality.
Ooh.
Jonathan then walks in on Samson taking a dump.
On the toilet?
Yeah. And he waits outside for him to finish. We hear him flush the toilet, wash his hands, which is nice.
Well, I'm sure he's washing his hands. He turns the tap on anyway.
Yeah, pretending to.
Yeah. That's what kids do. You wash your hands? Yes. Yeah, and then Samson leaves, but before Jonathan can go into the bathroom, Jordan stops him.
Yes, and this is a clip that we heard at the top of the podcast.
Yeah, Samson eats the toilet roll, so yes, once again, hammered home, gorilla eats paper.
Jordan has something he wants to show Jonathan and he leads him away.
Yeah, he specifically will not allow him to go to the toilet, even though he asks if he can.
Down in the kitchen, as Maddie hacks away at a pumpkin. Why is she hacking away at a pumpkin at this
She doesn't
time?
know how to open the pumpkin. She's...
Okay, but you're a guest at someone's house.
Yeah.
You're there because there's been a gruesome murder or accident at the very least.
Yeah.
Under what circumstances do you think to yourself, I know what, I really need to open a pumpkin?
Yeah, I mean, the only theory I had was maybe they're going to make pumpkin soup for the next day, but if you're doing that, you should maybe know how to open a pumpkin.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I don't know, I can't think of any recipes that include a pumpkin,
Yeah.
but at a time of crisis...
Well, soup's the kind of thing, though, you could make it at night and then the next day you've got
No, but my point is, at a time of crisis, you're not thinking to yourself, I know what, I'll make soup for someone else. There'll be tins of soup, you know, this is the type of thing where you get takeaway or you just use what's in the house. You don't think to yourself, I'll make a pumpkin soup. Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I see you've got a pumpkin lying over there. I'll just make soup if that's okay.
Yeah.
Nah.
Maybe she was just feeling awkward sitting there not doing anything.
Yeah.
Get her hands on something.
But no, you fidget with a knife or
Pack of cards.
pack
or
of cards.
something.
Yeah. Toothpick. You don't de-pumpkinize a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Anyway, as they are chatting, Maddie assures Ingrid that Jonathan will work things out, but starts to say that they're not an item.
Yeah.
Until Ingrid provides some insight.
Whatever the truth is, if what happened in that room, Jonathan will fathom it. He's got this incredible way of juggling things in his mind.
I'm glad he's found someone finally. God knows it's taken him long enough.
It's not like that, actually. Jonathan and I are more just... Why? What's he been saying?
Oh, he doesn't need to say anything. It's there in his body language.
In what way?
Oh, when we're sexually attracted to someone, our whole posture changes. Barrier signals are dropped. We leave our mouths open for longer, we moisten our lips more. If you study his eyes, you'll see his pupils dilate when he looks at you. It's an involuntary gesture. He won't be aware it's happening.
Jonathan is doing all that? And I never noticed.
She's obviously pleased about this revelation.
Of course, I think that's been fairly obvious through the other episodes that this is a relationship that both parties are keen to progress, although I think they get out of sync with their desires So I think there are times when Jonathan is being more proactive and Maddie is in the back foot.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say, but they should really just get themselves sorted out.
Really?
They're grown adults.
Yeah.
This pussyfooting around doesn't do anybody any good.
So we're down to Jordan's office. And
This is my favourite scene.
okay, tell me about it.
Well, Jordan starts by showing off one of the fancy office chairs that he sells. This is his line of business.
Yeah, orthopedic office chairs.
Yeah. They're motorised and they swing up and swing down and spin round and stuff like that. He thinks Jonathan's like him, and nothing can be further from the truth, but Jonathan indulges him, or is forced to indulge him a little longer, and he explains that they both realise there's something out there that science can't touch.
Yeah. This is, as you say, this is the exact opposite of Jonathan.
Oh, absolutely. I love the bit about the shining now.
Yeah.
He has spotted a pattern.
What's that pattern?
The pattern of SK.
Yes. It's just like numerology mumbo jumbo, isn't it?
Oh, it's utter gibberish.
Yeah. SK, what, Stephen King, Stanley Kubrick.
He saw it in South Kensington Cinema.
Yeah.
And it was later shown on SKY television. Oh. Yeah.
Also, did you like how Jonathan described the chair that he was on?
What was that?
Well, he said it reminded him of the gynecology ride at Disneyland.
Yes. Jordan solved the crime, of course, at this point.
Of course.
He points out that the house is almost certainly built on unconsecrated soil where witches and murderers were laid to rest.
Yeah, a bit like a poltergeist.
Yeah. I think that pretty much covers all the bases, doesn't it?
Job done. Go and tell Masterson.
That's it. The delivery is fantastic.
His timing is brilliant. It's Simon Day who plays Jordan Strange. I assume that you recognised him.
Well, I think anyone who was watching television when Jonathan Creek was on will know that face. He was obviously in Fast Show.
Yeah, born in 1962, he's a writer and actor. Most famous, I'd say, for the Fast Show. He was also in the movie Run, Fat Boy Run, Shakespeare in Love, The Life of Rock with Brian Perrin, Mount Pleasant, Pixel Face, Holby City, The Bill, Swiss Tony, and earlier in his career, Vic Reeves' Big Night Out.
Fair enough.
But yeah, in Britain, very well known, and in fact, a TV critic, I think at the Mirror, at the time called him the funniest man in Britain. He was very big in the late 90s.
Absolutely. The Fast Show was huge. I mean, everyone watched the Fast Show.
Mm-hmm. Where do we go next?
Back to the dining room.
Maddie seems to be the only one not having lost her appetite and reluctantly has to put her cutlery down. That was brilliant.
Yeah, we had a couple of episodes ago, we had a discussion about Maddie ordering a lot of food in a pub.
Mm-hmm.
You thought she was just hungry and ordered a lot of food. I think one of our listeners suggested it was maybe she was trying to order things that would make her breath smell.
Yes, I noted that on Twitter. I think that's a very plausible explanation.
But perhaps this incident leans it back towards your idea, if she just likes her food.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
I wouldn't argue.
Yeah, so we get in, just to explain, at the dining room, everyone is very subdued, apart from Maddie, who is wolfing into the wine and the food with gusto.
Abandon, yeah. Kathy and Jordan in particular are unsettled. She doesn't like the policing arrangements.
No, she breaks down, can't understand why no one is doing anything. Even a cop just standing at the door, doing nothing. Like Ingrid points out, he's just
He's just watching out for people who come to take photographs.
Yeah, the press or whatever.
Look at the scene of the murder.
Not, he's not a detective, he's not trying to solve the crime.
He's standing outside the house.
Yes.
Yeah, Ingrid has a better grasp on how these things are dealt with.
I think the gorilla has a better grasp than Kathy.
Absolutely. Jonathan starts thinking out loud a little bit about the facts of the case, things he has to ponder, but he's heading to bed.
Yeah, can you remember some of the things that he was pondering?
No. The gash on the desk, I assume, the books.
Well, it was more, I suppose, the motive, why it was done. So a suicide makes no sense if it's trying to be disguised as a murder.
Right.
Because if you're trying to disguise it as a murder...
You would make it a murder that could have been done rather than an impossible murder.
Yeah. And the reverse would be true as well. If it's a suicide...
If it's a murder.
If it's a murder, yeah. You wouldn't try to make it look like a suicide where you
Stab yourself in the back with a sword. Yeah.
So nothing really.
Neither of those options are really plausible.
No.
As he leaves, Maddie spins in her seat. She's got some thoughts going on.
Yeah, she looks quite longingly at him, and she acts on those thoughts in the next scene.
Yeah, not much later, she's in her dressing gown and she goes to check in on him in his bedroom.
Yeah, she walks in. Now, had this been a role reversal, certainly these days, it wouldn't be very appropriate.
It would be highly inappropriate. You'd at least chap the door.
You can't just walk in, get into bed.
Unless, if she knows he's awake.
And she knows he's definitely
Yeah.
consenting and up for it.
She has a terrible theory that I assume she's only making up to start a conversation.
Yeah, to get into bed.
About a mechanised sword. But then she brings up the idea of Kathy and Elliot sleeping together.
Yes, she does.
Out of nothing, other than observations of Kathy's behaviour.
Yeah, that's odd. I think you'd have to have seen them both together.
Well, I suppose she thinks Kathy is unduly upset given her apparent relationship to the victim.
Can you really, in this case, be unduly upset? It's your father-in-law, you live with them.
Someone's been murdered in your house.
A gruesome murder with a samurai sword.
Yeah.
You suspect she's, I said before, a nervous and fragile person.
I think it looks worse because the other two aren't visibly emotional.
Yeah, but they're part of the family. They've got the same makeup, the same stiff upper lip.
Yeah, I think at this stage Maddie's reaching somewhat, even if it does turn out.
We find out what she's reaching for in a second.
Well, she slides into the bed under the covers, and the next line I've written down is maybe an animal did it, but I think I'm talking about the crime.
Let's hope so.
Jonathan can't figure out where she's leading.
Yeah, but he's a problem as well. Okay, with this animal theory, and it's a good rebuttal. So you wouldn't. The screams don't make sense.
Yeah.
You don't plead.
If a monkey came at you with a sword, would you speak to it? No.
Yeah, and say no, please.
Yeah.
Which I think was nice. And she accepts this.
Yeah.
He also can't work out why there was blood on the desk if the sword missed him initially.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And she less than subtly changes the conversation at this point.
Yeah, she says they're in bed together. Where's this leading? And she explains the signals that Ingrid explained to her that show that Jonathan's attracted to her both emotionally and sexually. She's putting herself out there.
She's very confident at this point.
Yeah.
Now, he asks her why she keeps seeing her, and she smiles before saying for his brain, and then they kiss very passionately.
And she finds something attached to his ear.
As long as it's his ear.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's his pulse monitor. He wants to measure his pulse while they're in bed together, and it's not that bothers her.
No.
It's the fact that he assumed that she was coming and that this would happen. Ingrid gave him the same spiel.
Yeah, but let's take a step back. What also annoyed her was that he made a remark about not wanting to overload himself. And again, she takes it as a personal, physical insult.
Well, you said the previous time she didn't really take it personally, but this time,
well,
on top of this arrogance that he's displaying, I think it is a bit of a turn-off for her.
Yes, I mean, there are certainly times and places when you're underneath someone.
Yeah, but maybe if it's like for the 75th time or something, there might be room for a wee joke in there. But if you've never been in this situation, you're with someone who's exposing themselves emotionally, making themselves vulnerable, and you respond by taking the mickey out of them and criticising their appearance.
Yeah, perhaps it's a sort of immature, inexperienced reaction from Jonathan. He's not really a ladies' man.
Doesn't seem that way at all.
And now we're finding out why.
Yes. Amusingly, she now chucks him out of his own room.
Yes.
And as he leaves, he tells her what his pulse is. So he thinks he's done nothing wrong. He's obviously amused himself.
So he's in the hallway, and what happens?
The gorilla lunges at him, chases him down the corridor, and he falls down the stairs.
Yeah, it's a comedy-style fall because I don't see how you can fall down 2 stairs.
It's a pratfall, isn't it?
Yeah.
He falls down the stairs and then round the corner, down some more stairs, until he lands at the bottom, perfectly fine. At this point, the gorilla launches itself over the banister and face plants into the floor.
Well, I think, does Jonathan not have to roll out the way?
Yeah. Does the gorilla die?
Yes.
Okay. It certainly was at least knocked out, but he possibly did.
I think it's dead.
Samson. I've got a bit of trivia about Samson.
Go for it.
Okay, so Samson the gorilla, he was played by one of the stars of the John Cleese and Jamie Lee Curtis movie Fierce Creatures, which was
Okay.
the kind of follow-up to Fish Called
Yeah,
Wanda.
it's a loose sequel, I think.
He was animatronic. He was created by animated extras who do that sort of work. There wasn't a man in it. It was an animatronic gorilla.
Okay.
You could probably tell that by the eyes, which were weird. The original script for this episode actually called for both the gorilla and the two monkeys, the pregnant monkey and her partner, not to be in the... It would have been two chimps instead. The female would have been pregnant and the male would have been the aggressive one. Unfortunately, all the chimp actors in Britain were busy and they couldn't book one for the show. It was getting difficult and Samson kindly stepped in at the last minute, which is probably why he wasn't really involved in promoting the movie, which came out around at the same time.
That's very interesting, Ian. Thank you for that. Yeah. Have you written to...
No, I did this on Columbo. That was a real chimp. I wrote to the people who looked after him and asked after him, but Samson, I believe, just got turned off.
Oh.
Yeah.
He was discharged.
Yeah, and I've got more Samson trivia later on.
Okay, look forward to that.
Jonathan explains, as everyone comes rushing out at this stage, that Samson just came at him like he was, and then Jordan creepily stands at the top of the stairs going, "Possessed." And then Kathy kind of slides in behind him. It's a pure horror movie shot, isn't it?
And she's crying as normal.
Yeah, I think the director gets a bit of credit for this as well.
Yeah, that was fun. The next morning, we have a very John Carpenter Halloween theme.
Okay.
Score, as we see Kathy approach the study, where Jonathan and Maddie are doing a bit of investigating.
If Halloween's been an inspiration, perhaps that explains the pumpkin.
Yeah, didn't think of that.
It's just a nod to Halloween in general.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah. Maddie admits that they are not going to be able to bring Strange back to Kathy. She's very childlike here.
Yeah, she's not that bothered if they've solved the crime, if it's not bringing him back to life.
Before Jonathan notices something weird.
Footprints.
Where?
On the shelves.
What shelves?
The bookshelves.
Which ones?
Leading up to where the books were thrown onto the floor.
One's up very high.
Yeah, to the top of the shelf.
In the kitchen, Ingrid takes a call from the police informing her that Masterson will be arriving at 10:30 in the morning to speak with Kathy.
Yeah, Ingrid goes out to tell Kathy, so Maddie nips upstairs to poke around Kathy's room and asks Jonathan to give her a shout if she's going to get rumbled.
Now, he notices a chewed envelope containing a signed copy of a book, which is in the bin.
Yes, and then he goes through the bin and finds a matching envelope.
And he looks, or the camera looks across at the computer. Now, up in Kathy's bedroom, at the same time Jonathan is doing this, we see Maddie discover what?
Well, she finds a 1997 diary. It took me a wee minute before I clicked that that's contemporary to the episode.
It was a current diary.
Yeah. So she's looking at that, and Jonathan misses Ingrid coming in because he's working on the computer. He's searching for the word polo.
Yes, that was part of the address written on the envelope he found in the bin.
Yes. Ingrid then discovers Maddie in Kathy's room reading the diary.
Yes, and they both agree that Kathy would not thank them for the intrusion.
But she's there.
Tearful Kathy appears behind her and they all decide to head downstairs.
Yeah.
We cut back to the study. Jonathan has searched but unfortunately found no results.
Meanwhile, Maddie is going to read out this diary.
Yes, in the living room we have Kathy, Jordan and Ingrid listening as an extract is read out.
October 15th. At long last. E and I had fantastic socks. Imagine that's meant to say sex.
Oh, it does say sex.
Actually it says socks, but we won't quibble.
Oh, really? I did 2 years at secretarial. I think I know the difference between sex and socks. I would...
Afterwards, as we lay knackered next to each other...
Naked, it says.
I'm sorry, if we're being accurate, it says knackered. For naked, your outline would be completely different.
No.
You know, I had sex. Why is this a crime?
The I doesn't stand for Ingrid, Jordan.
Doesn't stand... You're making this up.
I wish you was.
What, you knew? How?
I may be a wizened old bat in your eyes, Cathy. That doesn't mean I'm as blind as one. Some other time, I'll give you a lesson in subliminal bonding gestures. Oh, for God's sake. I'd seen it coming for months. I'd almost say he needed it to flush it out of his system. Afterwards, when he told me and all the guilt came out, he threw himself on my mercy.
You're lying! Elliot would never tell...
Cathy, you have the body of a woman and the brain of a sexually stunted newt.
Just before that clip started, we heard Jordan claim that he didn't know Cathy kept a diary. She responds by saying something along the lines of, "There's a lot of things you don't know about me." So he knows that's her diary. This has always really annoyed or confused me.
Okay.
So he thinks that, as we heard in the clip there, that Cathy was having sex with Ingrid.
No, he thinks that E&I is Elliot and Ingrid.
But why? But we've already established this is being read from Cathy's diary.
I think it's a mental block. I think he just can't process the idea until it's spelled out for him.
You see, that's just too... It's just too subtle for this type of show. Or too much has been left for the viewer to assume that. I'm not disagreeing, that's an explanation, but it's not... I don't understand that. We know that he knows it's her diary. So who does he think?
Yeah, no, I don't think he is thinking. I think he's just in shock a little bit here.
You see, that would be more understandable if he was the devoted, loving husband who can't accept or would never. But we've already been told it doesn't really pay that much attention.
But he might still consider himself devoted and loving just because he's not really. Doesn't always mean the same thing.
Fair enough. It's just something that has always annoyed me.
Yeah, fair enough.
So as this is going on, we see Jonathan. He's found a floppy disk called Cathy's Letters. Now this is where?
It's in a box of floppy disks up in Cathy's room, I assume.
Yeah.
Now, that brought back some memories. Floppy disks. Did you use floppy disks back in the day?
Of course.
1.4 megabytes of...
Yep.
Not very much.
1.44 was it? Or
something along those lines, yeah. And then you had to find a different formatted disk if you did a Mac or a PC.
Mm-hmm. And we heard as he was looking at, or we hear as he's using it, the whirring of the disk drive in the computer. I recognised that.
You remember the springs going on the disks and you lose the silver bit off the bottom, and how long will the data last before it's completely wrecked? Yeah,
every time you put it in, not being confident that the data would actually be there and accessible.
Yeah, because you've carried it in your school blazer pocket for 6 weeks and all the crumbs of the biscuits you were eating and things are in there as well.
Just to backtrack a second, are we sure this is in Cathy's bedroom?
I don't know. No, it might be next to the computer that he was at before.
Yeah, but why would... Yeah, because who would have this called Cathy's Letters? It could only be him, Elliot.
No, Cathy might write on her. I would have done that. I would have run Ian's games or whatever on. If other folk are likely to be around the disc.
Sure. Yeah, like Ian's VHS, Ian's tape. This is my tape where I take my programmes. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Back in the dining room.
Living room,
sorry. The family are essentially fighting it out here. It's like a squabble. Jordan's devastated. Not so much by the fact that his wife slept with his dad. He's kind of okay with that. It's the fact they did it in his favourite swivel chair.
Yes.
and she knows this is upsetting to him. That's why they did it there.
Yeah, and she twists the knife a little further by saying that it was on maximum tilt and the hydraulics were wonderful.
She essentially feels that he's more interested in that monkey than he is in her. And that's led to this issue.
Okay, so those 2 points you've made there sort of support what I said. He wasn't that bothered that they had an affair.
Yeah.
And she claims that he was more interested in the monkeys.
And Ingrid backs her up on that because I think she has a go at her son here.
Yes, what does she say?
She says he's as much to blame, which is a bit harsh.
Sometimes you have to be harsh.
Yeah. I don't think he's as much to blame. He might be negligent or perhaps a bad husband. It doesn't mean he's responsible for other people's actions.
No, certainly she doesn't have to pick her husband's father if she's wanting to get involved in that. That's,
she could just break up with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, meanwhile, up the stairs, Jonathan's search has borne fruit.
Yes.
So this can't be in the study because...
No, it's definitely not the study. I wasn't sure if it was Jordan's...
Maybe Jordan's room.
Yeah.
Well, surely Jordan and Cathy share a room.
Back then when you've had a computer in your room, when they've got all these offices and studies...
Certainly it's the same room that the hydraulic chair is in because Jonathan's sitting on it.
Yeah, so that'll be Jordan's study.
Yeah,
his
if
office.
there's another study, yes. It's a big
Yeah.
enough house to have a study, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. He finds what he's looking for and immediately accidentally reverses his chair right out the door.
What does he find?
It's a letter, and the address is spelt the same as on the envelope.
Down at the entrance hall, the cops arrive, and it is revealed that all prints on the sword belonged to Strange himself. And as they talk, Jonathan is he's upstairs on the balcony. He's startled by a monkey, which causes him to drop this piece of paper that he's found.
Yeah, and just as he's done that, someone makes a reference to not expecting the answers to fall out of the sky.
I like that.
I did. Kathy's getting agitated because the police seem to be focusing on her.
Well, they're asking her to provide an alibi.
Yeah, and it makes her frantic. She doesn't understand why she's under suspicion. It's a bit of an overreaction.
Yes, and again, Jordan's brilliant here.
Yes.
He says that it's an irrational, emotional reaction, and he's got 2 words.
Fatal attraction. Am I right?
As it's just the timing and the delivery is
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Jonathan finally has to rudely interrupt because he can't get a word in edgeways. He announces he knows who the killer is.
Yes. So we head over to the study. That's where all the best murders are revealed, in a study.
Absolutely. The DI's not impressed. She doesn't want to listen to Jonathan.
They do, however, listen as Jonathan notes the footprints on the shelf and the books thrown across the room. He says they made no sense, and she thinks, well, that's all he's got. She's quite quick to dismiss him at this point until Maddie points out that he undoubtedly has more.
There was no sense either in that gorilla suddenly going off its rocker, leaping headfirst off the balcony when the day before it had been as nice as pie, flushing the lavatory after it had been and everything. So what was there connected these 2 acts of total madness? About half an hour ago, in this room, I found it. Book of his that he'd signed on the inside. All sealed up and ready to be sent off to someone called Teresa Tolling. Does that name mean anything to anyone? Apart from the fact it's an anagram of Elliot Strange, obviously. Which probably means there's no such person and no such address.
An anagram made up by who?
Exactly. From the fact it's been folded and this isn't his handwriting, it's obviously a stamped address job that someone had sent him. The envelope for which was still down there in the bin. Huge fan of your work. If you'd kindly sign the enclosed and return it to me, I'd be the envy of all my colleagues.
Oh, my God. I think I'm beginning to see.
You see it now?
So, when Elliot
Exactly.
and when Samson, they were both...
Precisely.
Yes, thank you.
So at this point, Jonathan goes on to explain to the less perceptive amongst them what actually occurred. Ian, for the less perceptive amongst us, can you explain what actually occurred?
Okay, the basic cause of murder, or method, was poison in the gum in the envelope for returning the book, which was licked by Dr. Strange and then later chewed by Samson.
Some sort of LSD type substance.
It's hallucinogenic, but presumably also fatal, although we don't know because they both die before the drug has a chance to actually kill them. But Jonathan thinks it's fatal for some reason.
Okay.
Presumably because there would be no other point to doing it. In any event, poison, which Jonathan says turned his mind inside out. But Jordan starts asking about the sword, and Jonathan explains he thinks the samurai's attacking him because he's hallucinating. He thinks he's under attack, and he grabs the sword, and he is the one that has it stuck in the desk near the handle, and he climbs the shelves to get away from the samurai when he falls, unfortunately landing on the sword, which carries it away from the table. And he dies.
For me, this is quite weak. For one reason, really. Okay, so the murderer didn't plan that to happen. So
No.
I'll give them that. But my issue would be is that there's absolutely no way the murderer could be sure that the intended victim would lick the envelope.
No, it could be a secretary, or he could have had like a moistened sponge.
I would, in fact, assume that the famous person wouldn't be doing that type of stuff. That they would all have a PA, a secretary, or someone to
But
do
then maybe he didn't care. Anyone who works for him is as bad as him in their minds, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah. Anyway, the new problem is if you've got a fake name and a fake address, how do you find out who did it?
And Jonathan has an explanation for this, which is...
Well, this is very fortuitous, isn't it?
Okay.
The address on the envelope that sent the book to the strangers is spelt wrong. It should be Pool House. It says Polo House.
Mm-hmm.
So he somehow works out that they've copied this from somewhere. The address isn't publicly available. And the answer he's come up with is that a purported fan of the actress, Kathy Strange, would have written to her or found her address through a publicist or whatever, or by getting a reply to a letter sent to her publicist. And he's identified, or he's found this letter that Kathy sent to a fan with that same spelling mistake. Now, it's just as well she didn't copy and paste or use the same header for every letter.
Yeah.
Can you imagine she had 100 that went to that typoed address?
Yeah, it's, again, quite tenuous.
And the way that he would assume or figure that out, there's no logical path. It's not like, oh, he spotted something we would miss.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge leap.
Yeah.
That just happens to land right on it's Columbo magic all over again.
Yeah, in fairness, it is Agatha Christie-esque. She was, one of the criticisms of her writing was that she would keep secrets from the audience and at the last moment throw in something that you could not possibly have worked out from reading the book. But yeah, from this they have a likely suspect, an Alistair Tyree.
Of Nantwich.
Who the cops can match the saliva and see if he has any connections to animal liberation organisations.
Well, I don't think that second part really matters if they can match the saliva or even fingerprints or anything else.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter why he did it.
Maddie at this, she smiles admiringly at Jonathan. She calls him a cocky sod.
Yes.
She's impressed. Before we leave this scene, D.I. Masterson was played by Selina Cadell, born in 1953. She is known, to me anyway, as Mrs. Tishel from Doc Martin. Also been in The Amazing Mrs. Pritchard, Doctors, Cardiac Arrest, EastEnders, Lovejoy, Jeeves and Wooster, The Bill, Casualty, and a bit of Fry and Laurie. Now this is quite topical. We were discussing it just yesterday, I think. She was in 24 episodes of a childhood favourite, Bodger and Badger.
No.
Yep.
Oh, it's a bad time for Bodger and Badger fans.
Yep, Bodger, the actor, sadly died.
Recently.
Yeah.
Yes, sad news.
She was also a friend of Sigourney Weaver.
Okay.
Now, Sigourney Weaver had a special guest spot in one episode of Doc Martin. Now, I don't know if that's how... I'm not sure if she became a friend because of that, or if that's why they managed to get Sigourney Weaver on the show. And whilst we're talking about some of the actors, Sarah Markland played Kathy Strange. She doesn't have a massive CV, has been in Kingdom, Casualty, Doctors, The Bill, The Ambassador, and The New Statesman, amongst a few other things.
I quite like Kingdom. That was the Stephen Fry as a lawyer whose brother was missing.
Yes, I do fancy it because, in my mind, it's in a similar genre to Doc Martin. Although I've not seen it, I'm guessing that it's a sort of gentle British comedy.
It's worth... Certainly the first season anyway is good.
Yeah. Might give it a bash. I think Netflix recommends it because I liked Doc Martin.
Right.
So we'll see.
We get a little epilogue this week.
We do. Where?
Back at Maddie's flat. This is obviously... She's written the case up in her Watson style and is confirming that Tyree was identified as the killer. And she talks about Jonathan's brilliance. And again, I think that this insinuation here is that she should feel bad about making money off of his skills.
Yeah.
He kind of gives a little nod to that. But she's flirting with him.
Yeah, and we should mention, during this conversation, Jonathan is removing the plastic from one of Jordan's orthopaedic chairs. I'm assuming this is a new one, not the...
Not Kathy and Elliot's love chair.
Hope not. Yeah, so Maddie defends her cheesy style of writing. Yeah, she says she needs income. She doesn't have a regular salary.
If only she had somebody to support her, she says.
Yes, it's a not so subtle hint, but he doesn't bite.
No. They then reflect on how they came so close to having a moment together.
And she offers an insincere apology for being bitchy, apparently.
Did you say insincere? I thought she was sincere.
We'll shortly find out what happens.
He says that's all right, and she is upset that he didn't contradict her allegations of bitchiness against herself.
She takes the huff, turns around.
She's actually mad now, and he comes around the back of her chair as she reclines in this chair and reaches into her top.
Very Clausian.
She's not too upset.
Oh no, she's quite up for that.
And he takes her pulse and she lamps him.
Yes.
Quite literally in this occasion. He's an idiot.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things you do after you get together.
It's a more grown-up equivalent of paying a girl's bra at school.
Yeah, or dipping our pigtails in the inkwell on your... How old am I?
You've been watching Just William. Yeah, it's that type of... you like them so you'll pick on them type.
Yeah, deeply immature.
Very funny, however.
Yeah. Where you then get a no animals were harmed message.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't really get it. I don't understand why that's really required these days. I mean, we all know or assume that no animals have been harmed.
Yeah, maybe they should put up a message if animals have been harmed.
Yeah. There's movies where, in just about every movie, somebody gets killed. You don't put a thing up at the end saying no humans were killed during this.
Most of these movies, the big movies anyway, have observers from animal welfare bodies. And I think some of them even get certified or signed off to a certain level of care.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think they've got the same sort of regulations that you would have if you were using child actors. You know, you can only be on set for a certain amount of time, and there has to be a parent or guardian there to supervise. Yeah, quite right.
Yeah. I mentioned this during the episode, in fact, right at the start, but I think this is the first time through all of our podcasts we've done a show about a murder where we never see the killer.
I'm trying to think. I'll take your word for it. I can't get back through all of the... I mean, are you including Sledge?
That's not really the same. It's not about the murder in Sledge, is it?
No. Okay, do it. Yeah, we'd have seen a murder in...
Yeah, because Columbo catches all of the killers.
Well, he doesn't catch. There's some there's not. There's some that there's no murders take place.
Well, that's true, but then there's not a murderer that we don't see in those ones.
Yeah. Nothing stands out.
I promised you a little bit more Samson trivia.
You did promise, so deliver.
For me, obviously he was the star of the show. He stole the scene every time he appeared with those magical, mechanical eyes. It wasn't clear to me, but you have cleared up that he did die jumping off the banister. That was sad.
I think so.
David Rennick would not agree with my assessment of Samson as the star. He, like I said earlier, wanted chimps to do this episode. He thinks the gorilla stretched credulity, and he cringes, apparently, to watch this back, especially given that Annette Crosby's quite short and the gorilla is quite big next to her. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like it, apparently.
I think it's fine. I don't think it stands out as being dreadful at all.
Yeah.
Anything else you have for us?
No, that was it.
Okay. Production information. 7th of June 1997 at 59 minutes in length. Sandy Johnson, again, the director. I've mentioned all the relevant actors in this. I don't have any trivia myself that's not been covered, so I suggest we go on to the episode review.
Okay, and then we can do the season review after that.
So, motive.
Protest, I guess.
Animal rights. Alibi.
Wasn't there, didn't send a letter.
Locked room.
Well, they didn't know it'd be a locked room, the killer. So that's not part of the alibi.
Yeah, fair enough. Clues. Okay, let me go through what I've got and tell me what I've missed. The envelopes, the chewed envelopes. Samson going a bit crazy. We didn't mention it actually. I think he's referred to as going apeshit.
Yes.
The typo on the letter, the anagram, the footprints and the books in the study.
The knife mark in the desk, did you mention that?
Nope, yeah, that's another one.
They're the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's known to have antagonised animal rights activists.
Yeah. So the gotcha this week, I suppose it's the envelope being tested, really, I mean...
And the identification of who got sent the typo.
Yeah. all wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
Okay, before we move on to the episode review, what we're going to do is go through each episode from this season and try and offer an opinion as to whether the guilty party would be found guilty or not guilty if it went to court and they pled not guilty.
Yeah, we'll have to obviously caveat a couple of these. So we're assuming there's no confessions and they are not dead.
Yeah.
So where the killer has died, we assume whatever killed them, they have managed to survive it and made a full recovery.
Okay, so we'll start with this one first because we're here anyway.
Okay.
So I think what we heard, he was found guilty. We've got saliva on the envelope. I think that's pretty much
Clear cut this one. We're going to go backwards to the season?
No, I think we should start now at...
Start now at the beginning.
Yes.
Okay. Wrestler's Tomb, similarly, they've got toe print evidence on the gun.
Yes.
So I think that one's decisive. Guilty.
Yeah, I think I said at the time, tried to think what other explanation for having your... If she had kept her shoes off, she could have said she moved it when she was blindfolded, but her shoes were... Well, I'm saying that if she thought about it, if she then decided to use that as an excuse, she could have said that she took her shoes off while she was tied up and put them back on.
Yeah.
You know, if you're lying there, sometimes your feet can swell a little bit.
She could have worn tights, that would have made it easier. Anyway.
Yeah, okay, let's go guilty.
I think guilty. She's got the toe print evidence is there, so she can't get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Jack in the Box. So we're assuming here that the guy built this brick wall up and then they found him just before he died.
Yeah.
And recovered him to health. So he potentially here is facing 2 murder charges, although he's already been in jail for one of them.
Okay, can we just change then the criteria here?
Okay.
I think we're going to get ourselves a bit... I think we're going to tie ourselves in knots. I think we're overly complicating it. Yeah, I think what we do is just decide whether or not if there was a...
We're saying we tried posthumously then?
Yes.
Okay. So in a posthumous trial in this case, I think he would be found guilty.
Okay, so the killer of Jack is found guilty.
Yeah.
And is Jack himself found guilty of hiring the hitman? Because he is just as guilty.
What's the evidence to that?
It's the fudge letters, it's the connection, isn't it? I don't know if that would stand up in court.
Do they I suppose it is Jack's handwriting, they can tell it. Is it enough?
No, because he's quite, I mean, it's obvious, but it's semi-cryptic. It's all this, you know, sort of, you need to keep quiet and things, I'll make good my promise.
And we're skipping over confessions, so the fact that he told Oliver, not relevant.
No, it would be because he can deny it all he wants, but once you've told someone else, then that's still, he can say, no, he did tell me this.
Would he testify?
I think Oliver might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For justice sake.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially both of them guilty.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, reconstituted corpse. So we're looking at Zola.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was an accident.
Her death's an accident, but she killed her husband, right, her former partner.
Yes.
The evidence against her obviously is primarily the earring, the fact that she faked an alibi. Now, faking an alibi isn't proof of committing a crime.
Nope.
But the combination of that with the earring, I think it's one that's up in there. If she had a really good defence solicitor who could argue that the earring could have been dropped at any time, if she had a really good defence solicitor, this could go either way. I mean, they could argue that the earring could have got there at any time, could even have been in his possession.
Why did she have this edited tape?
Maybe she felt that the fact she had no alibi left her vulnerable. So she created an alibi because she was worried, and it was a stupid thing to do, but it wasn't proof that she killed anybody.
Yeah.
So this is one of those ones I think might be 50-50.
We can't do 50-50.
Okay, not guilty. I think a really good defence lawyer might be able to take her off in this one.
Perhaps that's something we should add to the criteria. You know, she's not having Matlock. She can have a reasonable defence lawyer. She can't have the best in the business, but she could have someone who's good. Very...
Yeah, I think a good lawyer would get her off.
You think?
There'd be enough doubt. You couldn't be certain she'd done it on the evidence that there was there.
Okay, I'll go with you on that one.
Finally, this one's fairly straightforward. No trace of Tracy.
Oh yeah, they built a bloody great ark.
And they found the girl in the ark.
Yeah.
And they've got the fake room.
Yeah, so there was no murder in this case.
No. So, who do they convict? Is it the whole community? Do they pick out individuals?
Well, I think they go for what they can get, so I think they go for the two of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, then it's a case of, I don't think you can get the whole community. I think you have to try and prove who else knew about it. So they might start singing like canaries.
Yeah, they might say, well, we were told to build this room, we weren't told what it was for.
Yeah, no, I mean the Polly and what's his face?
I suppose to try and implicate other people.
Yeah, so yeah, it was, I didn't...
Certainly someone is getting convicted of something here. There's too much evidence.
Child abduction, yeah. You found the child in your ark, you know. It's not like, well, it's not my ark.
It's God's ark.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're getting found guilty, I think.
Yeah.
And also the fact, yeah, they built that replica room.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. They built it. But the other people, they might say, oh, we were building this room, we don't know what it was for.
Oh, yeah, the other people, it'll be hard to prove.
Do you think if that boat had more personality, they would call it a great character arc?
Next time.
Season 2.
Dance Macabre.
Yes, the inspiration for the theme tune.
Mm-hmm. So that's us, yeah. Season 1, done, dusted.
That went quickly.
It went very quickly, didn't it?
Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did.
Good, me too.
It's not exactly as I remembered it.
Yes, no, I remember bits of it, and I don't think I remember all of any of them.
Mm-hmm. I think it's one of these things for me now that I sort of pick and chew it, watch half an hour here of this one, 20 minutes there, and to watch them all in sequence, in order.
Yeah.
After a 20-year break.
It's different, isn't it?
It's different, yeah.
You can see this relationship with Jonathan and Maddie developing.
Mm-hmm.
You can see him getting more into the criminal thing.
Yeah, it's been good. Okay, well, I think that's us. Ian, do you want to do your usual?
Yeah, end of season 1, probably as good a time as any to ask folk to please go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and rate, review and subscribe to the show, because we want to get as many folk on board with this as possible. The more people that listen to the show, the more people then get exposed to the show, and it'd be great to have a bit of a wee community thing going on. We saw that happen with the Columbo podcast. It was great. We'd love it to happen here as well. If you want to talk to us on social media, we're on both Twitter and Facebook at Creek Podcast, and at jonathancreekpodcast.com there's a post up about each episode where you can discuss it to your heart's content.
You can. Okay, that's us. Catch you in 2 next week. If you want, you can listen to us on the Blackadder podcast.
Yeah, or otherwise in a fortnight. Cheerio.
Bye bye.